Hi, this video is looking at writing a really great speech for your paper 2 writing exam. This is for all exam boards. So for Educash you need to do 2 of these in an hour. For other exam boards you might actually just do 1, but these are the 6 texts you're going to get: letter, report, review, speech, leaflet, article. The goal is you're going to write them all fairly similar. The only things that really changes is your layout and your tone. So like I say, we're looking at speech and it's going to be on the theme of interviews, so doing well in an interview. So here's the question. Your school or college have asked you to give a speech to your fellow students on completing a successful interview. Give your speech. So the goal of a speech is basically to persuade the reader to agree with you. So whatever tips you're going to give, you're going to be really convincing, and you're going to persuade the reader that those tips you give are really going to help them in an interview. Your speech will be for a teenage audience. That means you can be informal. And maybe you can have a think about any speech you've had to give so far in your life, so school or something. What would you do again and what would you not do again? So top tips for the speech are: don't use fillers. I know it sounds daft, but a few people I've seen in previous exams have put actual natural speech like and oh. You don't need to do that. Brief welcome, 5 bullet point structure, which we'll talk about later, brief goodbye, and dress, which we'll talk about later in the video. What makes a speech different from any other piece of written work? Well, mainly it's for an audience. So you've got to write it as if an audience are actually going to really listen to it, even though we're not going to do it. And the way to do this is by trying to use direct address all the way through, which is using the words you and we to get the audience interested. So examples of direct address, I'm sure we would all agree. Are you all aware? We need to act now. So I would at least try and do a few of these in each of your central paragraphs. Again, I'm sure you've looked at Martin Luther King's speeches at school, but if you look at this, I've highlighted where he used we. It's not just him speaking. We, almost as a nation, as a country, we're all in it together. If you go on YouTube and you type in Independence Day speech, there's quite a famous movie speech where this is a guy trying to the battle against aliens, and he's trying to talk to the army about what we need to do. And I'll let you read it for yourself. But all the way through, there's lots of examples of direct address. So in the yellow, these are all direct address. So loads of examples, almost sort of 10 or 12 examples in sort of only about 13 or 14 lines. It's also got other stuff as well. So in the green, we've got rule of 3. We've got exciting and ambitious verbs and adjectives with launching, annihilation. We've got a few short sentences, mankind, to exist. And all the way through, using all those stylistic features that are going to get you good grades. So again, that's our question. Giving a speech about how to do well in an interview. So I would always, for your plan, you need to have 3 central paragraphs, but always try to pick 4 good things. So it might be 4 interview tips, or if you're doing about a day out in London, 4 good things about London. Okay. And so my 3 things that my 4 things, but I'm going to narrow it down to 3. My 3 things that I came up with to do well in an interview are: do research on the company. I remember years ago when I was 18, I was just after sort of college, between university. I went for an admin job. I didn't really want it, but I needed the money. And I remember they asked me, what do you know about the company? And I actually had to say, I know absolutely nothing, so I hadn't done any research. Didn't get the job. Make a good first impression. So that might be like the way you dress or handshake. And have your own questions ready at the end. So normally in interviews, you'll be asked at the end, do you have any questions? If you just go, nope, that doesn't look particularly great either. So there are my 3 things. Good first impression, do research, have your own questions ready. So remember, 1 point per paragraph. Do not put lots of points in one big chunk. That is what I mean by one big chunk. So we don't want one huge bit of writing with loads of reasons. We want to separate it out. And the way you do it is this structure, which is a structure for all 6 text types. So you've got your intro and conclusion, which are about 2 sentences. And then you've got your central paragraphs that are 5 to 10 sentences. Doesn't matter if it's a letter, report, article, whatever. That is the structure we're going to go for. So the speech structure would be a welcome, an intro, 3 main points, and your conclusion. You don't need any titles or addresses in your speech. So my 3 things, if I add that to my plan, remember your plan goes at the top of the page. You will get a mark for your plan. I'm going to put do research, good first impression, questions. Also quite good with the 2, 3, and 4. Do it in order of how much you think you can write or easiest to write. So I'm going to put number 2 as my good research, just because I think I can write the best paragraph on that one. So again, if I do that speech structure again, paragraph 2 is research, first impression, and questions. How do I start it? A lot of students struggle to get going, but after they get going, do really well. And so if we look at the intro, so my yellow one here. So tips for a good intro are: write no more than 2 sentences. In your first sentence, summarise the question. With copying out some of your exam question will help you with that. And then second sentence, almost give a clear argument or a clear opinion or a clear statement to the reader about what you're going to write. If you're pushing yourself and you want to get above grade 4 or 5, you can maybe talk about dress in your intro or use a colon. So here's my example of an intro. I've put, "Dear class, completing a successful interview can seem an impossible task. In this speech, I will give you my 3 top tips that will make you an interview wizard." So first of all, I've done my brief hello with "Dear class." In my first sentence, I've copied out a bit of the exam question. So it said successful interview. In the question, it said successful interview. I've put in this speech. It's also quite good to remind the examiner what texture type you're doing. We're doing a speech. So I've written speech. And then I've put, "I'm going to give you 3 top tips that will make you an interview wizard." So really stating, really clear what I'm going to talk about in this exam. If you wanted to push yourself a bit of dress, instead of that, you could start with a rhetorical question. Do you want to get your dream jobs? Getting the reader involved straight away with a rhetorical question. And then I've got a bit of an exciting sentence with ace any interview. So a bit of a modern, or at least sort of not old-fashioned verb with ace. Yeah. So if we look at the middle paragraphs now, here's an example of a middle paragraph. This is going to be my one about researching the company. Firstly, you need to research the company where you're interviewing. One of the most important parts of interview prep is company research. In a recent survey, 90% of employers say that could tell if an interviewee knew very little about their company. The more you know about the company before the interview, the more equipped you are to answer their questions. Employers want to see that you want to work for their company. They don't want to hire someone that simply needs a job. They want to hire someone that wants to work for them. You can't know too much about the company. Company research is a crucial tool for success. Going on the website, Googling them, and reading the job description carefully will turn you into an interview god. Okay, so we'll look back into that in a minute, but impressing the examiner, so using this stuff, you should all know this stuff. It might have been called A Forest or De Forest from your teacher. I've narrowed it down to just dress because I think these are the ones that are really going to help us. And again, you can make up statistics, obviously. Yeah. So I've put in a recent survey, 90% of employers say they could tell from an interview very knew little about a company. I've completely made that up, but it backs up my point that you must do research in a company. So if we look at a bit more detail now, we've got sentence starter with firstly. I've got blue, I've got my statistic. Green, I've got a bit of direct speech. In my red, I've got a bit of list of 3. And I've got a bit of an exciting language with interview god. Oh, I'm also all the way through. It can be informal, but I'm fairly formal because I'm talking about a business thing as well. And again, like we said earlier, I've got lots of direct address as well. So all the way through. So in my one paragraph, I've got 7 examples of direct speech. So I would try to do that if I was you. Also as well, try to change up your sentence length as well. We don't want all short sentences, all long. Your work should always be a mixture of short, medium and longer sentences. So another thing as well my students struggle with is topic sentences. So remember, topic sentences are the first idea, first sentence of your paragraph, basically saying what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about. So in your middle sentence, you don't, not intro and conclusion, not so much, but in your central paragraphs, have really short topic sentences that probably should be less than a line. I know they're longer than a line here, but that's because I've made the font bigger. Probably less than a line, and they probably shouldn't be using connectives like because and things like that. Almost one short sentence, what you're going to be talking about. So for example, firstly, you need to research the company where you're interviewing. Secondly, first impressions are extremely important. Thirdly, have some insightful questions ready. So you can really go into detail and do longer sentences, but that can be for the bulk of your paragraph. Your first sentence, make it really nice and clear. What you wouldn't want is, secondly, first impressions are really important because handshakes are really important, and also the way you dress. It's far too long, it's far too convoluted. First sentence, nice and clear. So here are some more examples. So my do research one, I've got firstly, you do research on the company where you're interviewing. For good first impression, I put secondly, first impressions are extremely important. And for the questions one, I've put thirdly, have some insightful questions prepared. Again, if you want to do a bit of an extension, push yourself a bit more, try and use maybe some dress in your topic sentences. So for example, want to impress, have some insightful questions ready. So I've got a rhetorical question at the start, again with a short sentence afterwards. So to recap on speeches then, 300 to 400 words, 5 paragraphs, short, clear topic sentences, use dress, use direct address throughout, use ambitious adjectives, and main thing is, big thing for my students is grade 3 or grade 4 students, check your run-on sentences and other common spag errors, mainly homophones and apostrophes. Okay, hope that's been some of use to you, and good luck in the exam.